Hi, good morning everyone. I hope all of you guys are doing well. Today, before starting to talk about anything at all, I wanted you to go back and reimagine the first time you were learning to ride the bicycle. जब आप साइकिल चलाना पहली बार सीख रहे थे अपनी लाइफ में, उस बात को मैं आप चाहता हूँ कि आप रिमाइंड करें अपने आप को या फिर ट्राई टू रीइमेजिन that what was happening at that time. So I was sitting this morning and I was rethinking of those times when I was actually learning how to ride the bicycle. मुझे अब भी याद है, I used to live in a small town known as Dadari in UP near Gautam Budh Nagar, Noida. And in this town I grew up in the initial years of my life. And there in a ground near to my house is where I learned how to ride the bicycle. I think आपकी सबकी कहानी वैसे ही होगी. आप किसी गाँव में जैसे मैं था, किसी ऐसे छोटे से गांव में रहते होंगे पहले, वेयर यू एक्चुअली लर्न हाउ टू राइड द बाइसिकल इन सम ग्राउंड और इन सम पर्टिकुलर गली, वट एवर गली इट वॉज, वट एवर स्ट्रीट इट वॉज. सो एंड आई रिमेंबर्ड दैट आई वॉज टॉट हाउ टू राइड द बाइसिकल इन कॉम्बिनेशन विद माई पेरेंट्स एंड ऑल्सो विद वन ऑफ द पर्सनस हु यूज्ड टू लिव जस्ट वेरी क्लोज टू मी. जैसे भैया होते हैं अपने नेबरहुड्स में, तो ऐसे एक भैया ने, one of the guys who used to live there, he taught me how to ride the bicycle. So we used to go every day, and every day I used to obviously fail. I used to try to climb up and try to balance myself, but then balance नहीं होता था कभी. Then sometimes I used to try to, try, if I had the balance, I used to fall by just after 10 meters or 5 meters. Then small things, how to climb the bicycle, pedal कैसे घुमाना है, how to put the brakes, that used to be very important. So all these small things I learned when I was a kid, and I was remembering this because I was thinking about failure, and I thought that when I was learning how to ride the bicycle, I was failing every day. It took me 2-3 weeks to learn how to ride the bicycle properly, or not to go and strike with someone in the street. आप इतने, और वो छोटे छोटे स्ट्रीट्स होते थे where we used to live, नालियाँ होती थी साइड में, and you could go. Sometimes I actually fell into the नाली also because used to use the balance. So ऐसे धीरे धीरे करके साइकिल चलाना सीखा. But don't you remember that, and don't you remember how fun of a process it was? I remember it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, and till today I clearly have those memories in my life. Even what I was wearing that day, I have a faint memory of what I was wearing that day, what kind of a cycle it was. उसके आगे बास्केट लगी हुई थी, ऐसे उस टाइप की साइकिल थी. I still remember those small details. And the only reason I think every child who is learning to ride the bicycle, आपने भी ऐसी सीखी होगी. In fact, I want you to comment in the comments below how you learned to ride the bicycle and what kind of a process it was for you. So I remember, and in fact for every child this is true, whoever is learning how to ride the bicycle, is persistence number 1. कि आप करते रहते हो, you keep failing and you keep doing. That persistence is there, that repetition is there. So persistence is, even if you fail, you get up and you do it again. बाइक से गिर रहे हो, ब्रेक नहीं लग रहा है, किसी के वॉल के अंदर जाके घुस गई बाइक, कुछ भी हो, that persistence is there, repetition is there. You do it every day. 15-20 दिन, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we continue to ride the bicycle same time every day or different time sometimes, but that repetition was there. And on top of that, that enthusiasm was there. It was such a fun process. Even though I was not able to learn, my parents, your parents probably, my parents also, my bhaiya that day who was with me, he was always pushing me, he was always encouraging me, supporting me कि हाँ Manoj, don't worry Manoj, ऐसे उठो, ऐसे करो, ऐसे बैठो. He would hold the bicycle from behind. वो याद होगा आपको moment when you are on the bicycle and you are tumbling a little bit, और पीछे से किसी ने bicycle पकड़ रखी है to give you the support, and they're running behind you. So that kind of support was there. So persistence was there, repetition was there, enthusiasm was there, and support was there. These 4 things are very, very important, and I think for a lot of you might have the same story of learning the bicycle also, where you had these 4 components, where you were actually enjoying the entire process, and despite the failure that you were facing, you were still, eventually you learned how to ride the bicycle and you enjoyed that process. In fact, ये आपके दिमाग में एक ऐसी memory होगी, this must be such a beautiful memory in your mind, and you will cherish it for your entire life. But unfortunately, once we grow up, when we become adults, we start fearing the failures. So when we were kids, we were learning all these different things, riding the bicycle. We were not really afraid of the failure. In fact, we were embracing the failure, and we were embracing this thing that failure is the way to success. That we were persistent, we were repeating things. But as we grow up in the society, somehow adults and the society makes us believe that failure is a bad thing. It is shameful. And that is what I wanted to touch upon today. And apart from that, I'm going to touch upon some confirmation bias also, which I read in book by Pavneet Singh sir. Amazing book. He writes so well, and he brings out such good things about UPSC that no one else does. So I wanted to talk about that also. See, I was reading about failure, and I was reading about how failure is such one of the things in the society which has been looked down upon, and in the same society where failure is actually encouraged, where it is okay to fail when you are learning new things as a kid. So that is such a dichotomous thing, and that is such a contradiction, right? But I think it is extremely important for all of us as we are growing up to realize that failure is not a bad thing, to always remind ourselves of the fact that without failure there is no success, without failure there is no progress. You are going to fail one time, you're going to fail twice, you're going to fail thrice. You're going to have to repeatedly do things in order to come out stronger on the other side, and that applies to UPSC. First time you might have picked up the Lakshmikant book, you might have picked up the current affairs sub compilations, you might have picked up the newspaper. Lot of aspirants find it very hard to read the newspaper and figure out how to read the newspaper, and it is a non-negotiable. You have to read the newspaper, but you have to fail also at reading it. Your first try might be 5 hours, 4 hours. You are not even getting very basic things. You are not able to absorb anything, but that is where the real hard work is. You have to go through this process in order to eventually find the way, and eventually find the day or be on that day where 30 minutes you are finishing the newspaper and you are understanding everything, you are getting the gist of everything. Similarly with making notes. When you are making notes, initially you will be maybe making very long notes, you will be writing a lot of useless things in your notes, but eventually it will be very clear to you that notes have to be short, simple, keywords oriented, main concepts oriented, examples oriented only. You don't have to write a lot of different things in the notes. You have to only write things that you need to remind yourself when you're closer to the exam. Why do we not accept failure? Why do we not accept failure? That is very important to understand. We don't accept failure when we become older and older is because of the fear that we have. The fear of not being able to do something, or the fear of the society. So for example, for a UPSC aspirant, what kind of fears do we have? We have the fears that we will not be able to make in the first attempt, second attempt, maybe it will take us 6 attempts. The fear is, how will I finish all these books? I was never good in studies in my college. The fear might be that the competition is so much. The fear might be, what if I'm reading this book but no question comes from this book? Well, these fears are there for everyone. First of all, you have to know that you are not alone who is having the fear. So when something applies for everyone, it automatically becomes something that you don't have to worry about. So for example, if some hard question comes in UPSC prelims paper for the first time from some source that no one knows, some new kind of a question comes from history or polity, remember there are going to be 1% people, maybe less than 1% people, maybe a very minuscule amount of people who might just get that question right. Most people are not going to get that question right. So it doesn't matter. I tell aspirants a lot of times, lot of questions in UPSC, there are a lot of sections in UPSC from where questions come which are hard to solve. So why are you focusing on those sections so much? It is absolutely pointless. CSAT, there is so much fear of CSAT among UPSC aspirants. But if you look at CSAT, there are only 3 things. There is the math section, there is the verbal section, and then there is the logical reasoning section. Even if you are bad at maths, even if you never studied maths, if you do the verbal section properly, and if you do the logical reasoning section properly, which has no maths inputs in it, it is just about critical thinking, you already make it easily above the 33% cutoff. So why are you wasting all your time on maths and then giving examples that IIT Bombay ke log nahi kar pa rahe wo wali maths? It was so hard. It was harder than the IIM exams. This entire fear is created by people who are out there to spread negativity, who are out there to actually not be serious about this exam. And I urge you to not go into this negativity at all. In fact, you focus on your how many times you can try, how many times you are going to fail, but still you are going to eventually find success. But obviously, the faster the success comes, the better it is. And obviously, we all have to work towards that. I would have obviously liked if I made it in my first attempt rather than my third attempt, right? So, but the whole point is that it is the fear that is stopping you from fear of failure, from trying and from pushing yourself really hard and pushing yourself in the right direction. Like I said, persistence, repetition, enthusiasm, and that support. See, if you want to be successful in UPSC also, you have to be ready to become uncomfortable. How uncomfortable? Like I told you many times, don't start just asking questions like, सर ये सोर्स कर लें तो पूरा हो जाएगा क्या, बिपिन चंद्रा कर लें या स्पेक्ट्रम कर लें तो पूरा हमारा हिस्ट्री हो जाएगा क्या, which book should we do? Why don't you just pick up one book that you are comfortable reading with, finish that book, and then you come to the other book and see if I missed anything out, if there is anything that value addition is happening. Lot of people are talking about NCERT. NCERT नहीं करना चाहिए. Lot of so-called vloggers nowadays are talking about NCERT नहीं करना चाहिए. क्यों नहीं करना चाहिए NCERT? If you have no idea about basics of history, basics of economy, basics of social sciences, why should you not be doing your NCERTs properly? They are the foundational texts. They are taught in class 9, 10th, 11th, 12th for a reason. That your foundations are good. Even if you graduate from high school and let's say whatever kind of education you get, these texts exist in order for you to become a well-informed individual, a well-informed citizen of the society, and that's what UPSC is looking for. It is looking for well-informed, intelligent individuals who are able to work hard, who are able to be put in pressure situations. That's why the exam is so hard. That's why the exam is so varied. Because the kind of things you're going to see in the field as an officer are going to be like that. They're going to be very varied, very dynamic situations. So basically what I'm trying to tell all of you is that don't try to compare sources. In fact, this is where the thing I wanted to talk to you about. The confirmation bias that Pavneet sir talks about in his book is very important. Lot of aspirants suffer from confirmation bias. We also suffer from confirmation bias. I also have this problem, but we have to be very mindful about it, and we have to try to find ways in order to reduce this confirmation bias. Now, what is confirmation bias? Confirmation bias is nothing but when you try to favor information that confirms the pre-existing beliefs that you have. So, for example, आपको लगता है कि UPSC में, for example, some questions have been coming from Lakshmikant book for years and years. 10 questions, 5 questions, 15 questions. And it has become a Bible for everyone. Everyone buys it and reads it. Good enough. But let's say for 2 years, in fact it happened in 2021 and 22, no questions in polity came from this book. So that would be a shock. That would be a high scoring section for a lot of people. यहाँ से मुझे बहुत सारे questions मिल जाएंगे. But then you were not able to get a lot of questions from this section in these particular years. Now, what will UPSC aspirants think? They will confirm their bias. The bias is questions always come from this particular book. So they will still read only this book and not try to figure out what are the other kind of topics we should also study for UPSC from polity, which have newly been inducted in the exam. So in those kind of situations, so that's why I always tell you previous year questions, view them, see the topics where they're coming from, and do some research on that. So this kind of research and hard work you have to do yourself. Coaching institutes are not going to help you. So for this, Lakshmikant is not going to be enough. In fact, I think Lakshmikant you should definitely read, and you should do it thoroughly. But at the same time, look at PYQs of 21-22 in years. There's some new questions have come, and try to just Google those questions. What kind of questions are these? What kind of topics they're coming from? In fact, a lot of them are fundamental questions which don't get covered in this book. But you can answer them by reading NCERT and doing some research on those kind of topics. Very basic research. 2 to 3 hours you have to just put. Maximum 5-6 hours you can get all of those things correct if you just go to the right mind makeup that I have to read it, I have to research it, I have to do my own work on this, I have to do my own hard work on this. That is very, very important, and a lot of people don't do that. Similarly, as Pavni sir had pointed out, 2015-16 current affair compilations, no questions came. Before that, after that, lot of questions had been coming from compilations, but suddenly in 2 years UPSC did not. And then confirmation bias of aspirants set in. And what is that confirmation bias? अरे ये तो exception होगा 2 साल, अब तो आएंगे फिर भी next year also. But you cannot beat the newspaper. Yes, current affairs compilations are great for revision, for complementing what you are studying from newspapers and through Google. But newspapers cannot be supplemented or be completely put on the side and only you are reading from compilations. But that kind of mentality gets created in the UPSC market. The coaching mafia does that by basically pushing you to adopt certain resources that they have to sell. And I always tell aspirants, don't limit yourself. Don't limit your thinking to source. ये source वाली thinking है ना कि कहाँ से आते हैं questions. That is not the way to look at UPSC exam. हमारी टेस्ट सीरीज में से essays आते हैं. अरे इससे आगे तो नेक्स्ट टाइम ज़रूरी है क्या आएगा इससे from your test series, from any coaching. Lot of coaching institutes this time have said that from our coaching test series this essays have come. So what? Only if you know how to tackle dynamically the essays there on the spot, whatever essay is being asked, if you have the writing skills, you have the thinking skills, you have the right set of content and knowledge in your head, then only can you write well in any essay. Let it be coming from any test series. पूरे 8 के 8 essays भी, if they come from some test series, it doesn't matter. What matters is whether your confirmation bias is not there and you are preparing yourself as an individual, you're teaching yourself to become more knowledgeable, to become more critical in thinking, to have fundamentals correct so that you can write the answers even if the question is something that is of a curveball, if it is a new kind of a question. So please don't fall into this whole trap. You know, I will give you some examples of of confirmation bias. Horoscopes, we are always looking for information that we already believe about ourselves, that I am this kind of a person. Horoscope goes ahead and confirms it, and you are, oh wow, you know, this is what I am. But don't limit yourself to that kind of a thinking. Expand your mind. You can be much more than what horoscope tells you. Similarly, obviously we also look for information that confirms our biases. Let's say I have a view that this particular share in the market is going to do very, very well. So I'm going to look for articles online to confirm that bias of mine. And that is not the way you want to do analysis. You want to, in fact, have completely opposite. You want to test your theories, put them through test, and then come to some conclusion, because that is what will actually confirm what you believe. But you can't do that in UPSC obviously. But what I'm trying to say is that always be prepared. Don't limit yourself कि हिस्ट्री का बिपिन चंद्र कर लिया तो हो गया मेरा UPSC का हिस्ट्री. ऐसा नहीं होता. There is always a process of, I used to do a lot of Google search when I was studying anything when it comes to UPSC, because that used to help me to supplement the information, and I built a nice web of information in my head. I built a nice, overall, like I always tell you, पहले story बनाओ और फिर details में जाओ. So I always used to have this overall idea about things, and then I used to break them down and study them for the exam purposes. A big picture and then the micro picture of things. This is how you want to actually approach things. And now there are certain things I want you to do. I want you to do this exercise. Number one, to now address your fear of failure and to address this confirmation bias. There are 2 things that I have for you. So you can do this exercise. You want to ask these 4-5 questions. Number one, and if you ask these questions, then what kind of answer you get by asking these questions to yourself, that will help you to move in the right or the better direction. Number one, do I have a unrealistic or realistic timetable in front of me? Sometimes lot of us have a very unrealistic timetable. Sir, मेरे को 1 साल में UPSC निकालना है. भाई नहीं हो पाएगा 1 साल में इतना easily. It will take 2 years. 1 year people are very, very rare. It will take you 2 years minimum. The scope of the exam has become so huge. So take one step at a time. Move one step at a time. Be patient. Don't compare yourself with others. take small actions, small steps, and you have to be patient. You have to remember that I have to work for the long term here. Okay, so do have the realistic timetable in front of you, and have you planned these smaller things? Are you being patient about what you're doing? Number one, ask yourself that question. Be honest about it. Number two, ask the question, am I truly committed to this particular goal? Do I have that burning desire to become an IAS officer? If you don't, go into the private sector, do well there, become an entrepreneur. Go into the other government sector, you can become a policy expert, go for higher studies. So for second is, am I truly committed to this cause? The third is, do I have too many discouraging influences in my life? If you do, take them out. Don't listen to people who don't believe in you. Yes, some sort of feedback is always important. If my father used to always give me good feedback कि मैं कहाँ improve कर सकता हूँ. So it's always important to have critical feedback, but don't keep discouraging people in your life, negative people in your life. Keep people in your life who back you and who believe that you can do it. Only then you will be able to also believe. And then finally, am I preparing to succeed? The steps that I'm taking every day, the routine I'm following every day, is that going to eventually add those small actions every day are going to become something at the end, you know? And finally, am I truly will I be able to accept, and will I be able to willing to fail? Will I be willing to fail? Because unless you are ready for a failure, you are not going to put in the hard work towards the success. All right, so I hope today's session really helped you out, and you're going to answer these questions. You're going to go back and answer these 5 questions. Let me know. Of course, I have been touching on more intangible aspects, because after doing this for 1 year now, I have realized that tangible aspects are easier and intangible aspects like this are harder. So I have been telling you about the intangible aspects. Okay, so I want all of you to work on these intangible aspects, so that you become a better person, better individual, better student, and a better citizen of our country. All right, take care, bye bye, and let me know if you have any questions. Happy to answer them in the comments. Okay, bye, take care.